The Ryen Russillo Show is presented by DraftKings. On today's show, we're going to do some NBA with Frank Isola from this week, including Denver's chances with OKC, OKC's ridiculous roster, Golden State, I think you're out. Then they pull us back in. Also, the East. Hey, Detroit, have you looked at their box scores lately? So a lot of stuff with Isola and some trades that didn't happen that were the best things that could have happened for those teams. College football, coaching carousel, the best fits at all the openings, and just the climate. Are college football coaches wanting to tap out and get to Sundays for the NFL experience? And we've got a really good, long life advice for you. NFL fans, what's your favorite touchdown? There's over 100 years of touchdowns to pick from. I'll tell you what I didn't like were the Desmond Howard returns against Parcells and Bledsoe. I was in college, and all the massholes were watching the game at my house, and there was another designated masshole house, and then non-massholes threw cheese at our houses, and the cheese froze because it was in the winter. It was in Vermont, and it was like, look, we were going up against the Packers, Favre, Packers, Holmgren, Reggie White. Can you take it easy? Like we're the plucky underdogs. This was before the arrogance. Like we were doubting it as much as everybody else. And then it's like now we have rotten price chopper cheese thrown at our house because of Desmond Howard. So that's not my favorite touchdown. But with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, every touchdown could bring you closer to cashing in. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips. From first touchdown score to anytime TD props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. Here's the best part. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Your team hitting pay dirt pays out to you. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code Ryen. That's code Ryen, R-Y-E-N, for new customers to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Chill.
Buy now and get the Russillo hoodie free. Call 1-800.
European theater.
The week is the Oregon Duck.
We need a big push here.
Our next guest, I think he's one of the best talk radio hosts in the country. Any format. I don't care. I'm saying it. Now, I start my day with NBA radio, the starting lineup, and it's Frank Isola who joins us right now on the podcast as co-host Brian Scalabrine. I just love the show. When I get a chance, I was driving down to Newport the other day. I had an early tea time, so it's like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. I don't know that I love every caller. If I were maybe a program director, I'd go, well, can we get more? I just think you're great at it. Your radio instincts, and it's kind of become something that's I think a little lost with the podcast part of it. So I think you're great, and I'm psyched to talk.
I appreciate it. We have a lot of fun doing it. And it helps too. I mean, when you were doing it with Scott, and if you have good chemistry, but the other thing is, Brian being an ex-player, he's got the right. He's at the perfect age. He's been retired from it long enough. He's obviously still involved with it, with the Celtics and NBC. And, he has strong opinions, which is good. And he could laugh at himself, which you have to be able to do as well.
Yeah, perfect combination. Like at some point, you can't try to be the coolest person ever. I know I try to do that maybe when I was younger because you're maybe a little bit insecure about the job. You don't want anybody fucking with you and all this kind of stuff. And so it's like, no, at some point you have to like let yourself have it from time to time. But then the chemistry's there, so I really enjoy the show. So I think topic-wise, there's a bunch of stuff that I want to do, and feel free to take it in any direction because you're also a host, not just a guest here today. Yep. There was no argument. There was zero argument on paper that OKC wasn't going to pull this off other than the complications of repeating. And, I picked Denver, and I said I'm picking Denver solely to be different with this whole thing. But for OKC to be doing what they're doing to these teams, I was watching them the other night, and it's like you have to every now and then remind yourself, like, wait, who's that guy? And is he also really good and would be like a top 8 rotation guy on 20 of the 30 teams? I don't know what you've seen from him this year other than just the domination and then again against the Lakers this week, but they're horrifying, and they don't even have a top 15 player playing for them right now.
No, it's insane. And they bring out like AJ Mitchell. It's like, where do they find these guys? And I've heard that Sam Presti, he's still going out and scouting all the time. So that's, if you're going to be the guy that calls the shots, you got to get out there, and obviously he has really good people that work for him. How about the stat? Their first 13 games, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has sat out the fourth quarter of 7 of them. That's how far out in front they've been. And what I love about, and Boston did it last year, and I get it, they didn't win the championship, but I appreciate these great teams that come out and they just hit the floor running. And that's the way what Oklahoma City has done, and they haven't had Jalen Williams yet. So I agree with you. I think Denver, because Denver took them to 7 last year, and Michael Porter Jr. had a bad shoulder. Aaron Gordon injured his hamstring during that series. Both obviously played in Game 7. There's just something about Denver. I'm a big Cam Johnson fan. I thought he did really well with the Brooklyn Nets under dire circumstances. So I still think Denver because of Jokic. But man, I mean, SGA and the Thunder, the way that they've started, it's really, really impressive.
It's funny though you mentioned that series because that was probably part of my thinking. And then after watching Denver live and being in the building for the 50 spot from Jokic on Wednesday night, they didn't have Cam because he was out after like 8 minutes of that game. But just watching him this year, I mean, the numbers are the numbers. It's a negative bench unit for like 4 or 5 years. You had to go back, I think, to like 20 or 21 the last time the Denver bench had a positive net rating to.
Yeah.
This year there's clearly something there. Like Valanciunas isn't my favorite backup center in the league, but I like him a lot better than whatever they've tried to roll out there in the past between DeAndre Jordan and Zeke Naji. So the Denver thing was, hey, OKC's the better team. I'm just wondering if a team can kind of get them. And there's also, this is wrong, so I'll say it. It is recency bias. But even OKC, like in the NBA Finals, you're like, why are you not putting away this Pacers team?
Yeah.
Like, cool Pacers story, but like, why are you not? And then it's a Game 7, and prior to the Halliburton injury, you're like, is this actually like doable? And it's like, look, it's Game 7. Like anything's sort of on the table. So maybe the even better part for the Thunder are that, hey, we screwed around a little bit, whether it was Denver, whether it was the Minnesota game on the road, and then it was the NBA Finals. Like, let's just buzzsaw through everybody. But I also wonder if today's players are a little bit more inclined in a playoff game, which seems shocking, to maybe just turn it off and be like, hey, we'll come back and get these guys in 2 days, 3 days. Or if that's what's always happened, it's just easier to forget.
And if we go back to last year, think about the way Boston started. And I feel like we were kind of saying the same things about them, where, you know what, they're going to repeat as champion. And when you looked at it in the Eastern Conference, it was a much easier path for them to get back to a finals. And you figured, all right, if they're going to play Oklahoma City, their experience will somehow carry them through. Then what happens? Jaylen Brown suddenly is bothered by a sore knee. Maybe Al Horford comes down a little bit. Drew Holiday, then things change. Now, this is a much younger OKC team. But, to your point, they did play 2 Game 7s. And against Indiana, they're down at halftime at home. And Halliburton only played 7 more minutes, and he wasn't going to play anymore. So I think everybody, even at halftime, thought that OKC would win it. But the one thing about Denver, and I think they're better, and it's funny, the two teams, the two coaches that got criticized for not playing their bench, Michael Malone and Tom Thibodeau, both those guys are out. And what did their teams do? They went out and improved their bench. And I think Denver has certainly done that. And Jokic is now at a point, and I was saying this on the show, like when you see his line in the box score, you almost become like a little disappointed that he didn't get a triple-double. The game that you're talking about with the 55 points against the Clippers, I think he had 6 assists, and you're thinking, well, you know what? You're almost like, oh, you probably could have gotten a triple-double. That's the standard and what you expect out of him because he's so great. And even his minutes, he didn't play a lot in the fourth quarter of that game. So if he's one of these greedy guys that's thinking, I'm going to stat pad, he probably could have scored 5 more points. He probably could make sure he gets the 10 assists. He could have had a 60-point triple-double. It's ridiculous how good he is. And on that night, you had him go off, you had Steph go off, and you had SGA taking care of business in 3 quarters. So on a night when like a lot of stars missed and were sitting out or might have been injured, how about the performance of those 3 guys? 3 former MVPs, 3 finals MVPs, all putting on a big-time performance.
Yeah, in that game, Jokic gets 55 on 23 shots. So, he
crazy.
Got to the line a little bit, but they actually had to put in effort in that earlier game of the week against Sacramento in the fourth quarter. So it was like, okay, well, they're coming off the back-to-back. So second quarter, like you're like, everybody's so excited, being like, when's he coming back in? When's he coming back in? And because now people are paying attention to when he's being subbed in, you're like, how come it's taking so long? It's like, well, they're going to bring him in later in the second quarter because there were still like 5 minutes, I think, off the game clock in the second quarter when they brought him back in. I was like, okay, well, that's because of the back-to-back.
Yeah.
I was thrilled they even put him back in Because in the fourth, like the score was getting to the point. I was like, they may not even put this guy back in there. And
Yeah.
you're hoping at least he's like 60, but he's not going to take enough shots. He was still passing up some looks there late where you're like, man, if you were just a little bit more selfish, like you could be in the building for a 70-point game, which would have just been a cool thing to say to my grandkids, you know?
Yeah, and I was in the Garden for 2 60+ games. One was Kobe and one was Carmelo Anthony. It was pretty cool, but a 70-point game, that's different. In a win, I know Booker had one against the Celtics a bunch of years back. That was before they were good or before Chris Paul, and they ended up losing that game. But, I remember the game last year where Denver came into Brooklyn. I went to the game, and Denver had played the night before in Toronto, and the game went to overtime. So you're thinking the way it works now in the NBA, it's 50-50 whether some of these guys are going to play in situations like that. So with overtime, with travel, going through the customs in Toronto, getting to the hotel, whatever time. And of course, he was out there the next night and he put on a show. It was a nip and tuck game, and he just made every big play. And that's why if you're a fan, there are certain guys you have to go pay to watch and go see. You have to go see Jokic play. Wembanyama is another one just because of how freaky he is. But Jokic is so good, and you really get an appreciation for the talent. If you love basketball, you love the passing part of the game. And to just see guys cutting in his head, and he's holding the ball up where he learned how to play, water polo. It's amazing to watch a guy that big, that skillful play such an unbelievable game.
What is your take on the Warriors? Because like that San Antonio game where I had watched, the previous game against OKC, that they just swallowed them up defensively. Steph had a bad night. You watch the first half against San Antonio, and you don't want to freak out, but you're like, what is wrong with this offense? And then you have the comeback. So I guess it adds a little bit of hope to it, but there's some issues with this team, I think, offensively that go beyond just like the non-Steph minutes.
Yeah, and I also think too, it's obviously happening with the Clippers. They decided to go all in with an older roster, and now Bradley Beal's going to be out for the year. Kawhi, of course, is banged up again, and Norman Powell was so important to what the Clippers did last year, and now he's in Miami. And I think the same thing's happening with the Warriors. It's hard to win. You need veteran players. There's no question about it. But look at what Kevin Durant has in Houston. He's the older player on the team, and obviously still loves to play basketball, still has ability. But his second and third best teammates, look at the age of those guys, with Şengün and with, of course, Amen Thompson. It's just kind of a better mixture. The Warriors' best players are still Steph and Jimmy Butler, and then Draymond's obviously going to play a lot, and he's still important to what they do on the defensive end. And then, they added Al Horford. They need Kuminga to be better. Podziemski as well. And something's going on there because you had Draymond call them out after the blowout loss to the Thunder. And then the next night, Steve Kerr announces they're going to make drastic changes to the rotation. And then Jonathan Kuminga had been starting every game. He comes off the bench. He played 12 minutes. He didn't play in the second half. They said it was a sore knee. But there's clearly something going on there. And it's almost like they needed a virtuoso performance from Steph Curry. What do they have, 29 in the second half, I believe it was, against the Spurs to win it. I just don't think that's sustainable all year long. And I think at some point there'll be some kind of deal that they'll make. It'll probably involve Kuminga somehow, but something, I agree with you. I think something isn't right there, and I'm not so sure it can get better anytime fast.
Do you think Nico Harrison would have extended Anthony Davis if he still were the GM?
It sounded like he was all in on him. I mean, you were definitely down on the trade when it happened, right? Were you I can't believe that you thought it was a good trade, right?
Have you met anyone that thought it was a good trade?
Well, I'm only saying
Come
that
on.
because my radio partner, Brian Scalabrine, at first he liked, well, you need two bigs and you need this. I kept saying, Brian.
Come on, Scal.
All right. So, like the Brooklyn Nets, I do 50 of their games. The Brooklyn Nets have all these picks. They're probably they could finish with the worst record. Their hope is to get a top 4 pick.
Is it safe to say from this class that Joman is their go-to guy? Out of this class? Yeah.
Exactly.
They're awful, Frank.
Believe me, I'm at all the games. I know better than anybody. And I mean, I feel badly for Jordy Fernandez. He just doesn't have a team.
It's not like anybody thought they were going to be good, but like it's it's a tough hang on top of everything
Well,
else. I think Nick Claxton is playing tough though.
yeah.
When I look at his possessions, I go, there seems to be some early this is an over effort from Nick Claxton that I appreciate. So that's just
Ryan, last year, their starting lineup included Dennis Schroeder, Cam Johnson, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Tough veteran players, talented. This year, they rolled out, Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas. It's hard. Like it's not that they're not talented, but you need, better players and you need some experience. But anyway, my point is a team like that is going to be in the lottery. Washington will be in the lottery. What are they all trying to get? They're all trying to land a player that's somewhere in the universe of Luka Doncic. It's so hard to get those guys. When you get that guy and you had been successful with him, he went to a conference finals twice. He went to an NBA finals. If you decide to trade him, knock yourself out. Are you going to get Anthony Davis back? I'm sorry, Anthony Edwards back for him? You're going to get Giannis back for him? Who's going to be the star player? Jason Tatum? All right. You're going to get Anthony Davis back. He's 6 years older, has a history of injury problems. He's better as a number 2, like he was with the Lakers with LeBron James. To me, I can't believe they actually sat there and thought we could see, if everything works out perfectly, this is what could happen. How do you not look at the other side and say, what could realistically happen? He can get hurt. He's hurt. Luka could play well with the Lakers, which he's doing. Luka's now in shape. It was what a mess. If the season had started and Anthony Davis was tearing it up right now, Kyrie's obviously out, and it was somebody else who's injured, Cooper Flagg, then I think the fans could say, all right, well, he got the right guy. Anthony Davis is tearing it up. The fact that he had played in, 14 of the first 46 games, I think it is, with Dallas, the fans were never going to let this go. And obviously, Nico is going to take the fall, but I have to believe that a lot of people in that organization signed off on that, including the owner. Obviously had to. How else? You're just going to let a guy trade a top pick like that without doing some intel? And the deal never made any sense. Never made sense.
Yep. I don't. I did a whole open on it. I talked about it when it happened that night. It's just unbelievable. Even if you hate Luka more than any other GM, you figure out a way. But to your point, whether you're looking at this year's draft class or I think there's even the Cade Mobley argument because I want to give the Pistons some love. I cannot believe the Pistons won that game a couple nights ago.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable win. Unbelievable.
Giannis, go Johnnies. There's four missing in it. There's 4 guys. I guarantee you, if you're the most hardcore league pass guy, you would have a hard time keeping up with who were actually playing for the Pistons the other night, coming off that back-to-back and the win against the Wizards.
And
go ahead.
And Ryan, how about the game that Cade had against Washington? It was a Monday night. It was a Peacock game. They're on the second night of a back-to-back. And in that game, Ivy obviously wasn't available. Neither was Tobias Harris. Carousel wasn't playing. Isaiah Stewart wasn't playing. Asar Thompson wasn't playing. Yeah. So 5 starters or rotational players not available. They're losing in that game. They stage this unbelievable comeback. They tie the game up on a guy named Dennis Jenkins hits a corner 3. The game goes into overtime. Cade shoots 45 times, misses 31, which is the most since the merger in 76, 77. But I watched that game. He was unbelievable in that game. They needed him to shoot all the time. But the point was, everyone else is sitting out, and this guy took a nasty foul from Cam Whitmore, landed on his back, was obviously hurt, couldn't play last night, but stayed in the game. Though, and this is the thing too, and Jeff Van Gundy told me this a long time, everybody talks about leadership, and everybody thinks it's a rah-rah speech. It's going out there on the court and doing it. And when your best player does that, second night of a back-to-back, most of his teammates aren't playing. He's banged up. He's got to shoot the ball 45 times. He still had a 40-plus point triple-double. That was an impressive, and they got the win. It wasn't like he said, let me get my triple-double. I'll shoot as many times as I can. And I could say, well, I did everything I could. He wanted to win that game. That guy, he is so impressive. I really like Cade Cunningham.
I'm with you. I have nothing else to add to that because I think it's just a classic. No, I think it's kind of the classic, oh, well, if Westbrook took this many shots, it'd be Westbrook's usage rate in the triple-double MVP season was 40 fucking 3. Okay? Yeah. I don't want to hear it anymore. So that doesn't mean that every time that somebody else has a massive, massive output night like that, it's like, hey man, I wasn't a super huge fan of like this historic usage rate. So let me make sure I shit on Cade Cunningham the next
Yeah.
day, just so I can keep it fair,
Yeah.
with everybody out there. So everybody knows that I'm on the up and up. And it's like, no, some of this stuff's different. I mean, look, Cade's at 20, 22 shots a game. I don't know that he necessarily wants to do that. I'm totally with you. I feel like he has to do this. And so like I love Evan Mobley, right? I think we
Yep.
all love Evan Mobley. I think his instincts, his passing, his smarts on top of everything else, like a super important thing with the basketball team is just, hey, are you kind of about the right things and not a pain in the ass? You know, like that's kind of my thunder thing when I explain it to some other people, like, hey, why are they so good? I'm like, imagine this, a young team that doesn't have apparently one guy that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. No, and it all starts with the best player in the team. And that's why, a couple of weeks back, Detroit was in Memphis. And Detroit, I believe, had been in Mexico City to play the Mavericks. It was still on the road. And think about those two teams. The star player on one, there's always something with him. Off the court, on the court, injured, underperforming, not happy. And then you got Cade Cunningham, who's just steady, who, by the way, went through a year where he was injured, who went through a year where his team lost 28 straight games. And that didn't contaminate him. Instead, you watch him play, and I got to see him play last week in Brooklyn. I mean, everything about the guy, his demeanor, his poise, his toughness, his competitiveness, and then you combine him with that beast, Jalen Duren, who's only 21 years old. Do you know that the
Beast.
Pistons, and I get it, it's the Nets, so I understand that. In the game against the Nets, they had 80 points in the paint. 80. I did the quick math. That means they made 40 baskets in the paint. That's amazing that they did that.
Yeah, so I think we both love Mobley. I think most people do, but like there's a little bit of a difference when it's like, okay, is Mobley ever going to be having the ball at the top of the key, going like, all right, big playoff spot? Like Cade can get you into your stuff, and he can finish, and he can pass, and he's that big, and he has that handle and the shooting. And because there was like a weird kind of inefficient statistical profile year for Cade where you're like, is this guy going to be kind of just this high usage, super inefficient dude
Yeah.
who can't get it done? And I mean, look, I don't think standings wise, I don't think the Pistons are going to be your one seed, but to put together like this kind of run, they've won 8 in a row. They're 10-2. They're in front of New York. They're in front of Cleveland. There's whether it's the Washington win or the Chicago win this week, like I can't believe they won those games.
It really the Chicago one was actually the more impressive one because then nobody played. Duren and Cade Cunningham actually played against Washington. They were not available. I mean, he had Paul Reed had a big night. The kid Jenkins again had set a career high.
Toulouse Smith. Are you
It's
familiar with his game?
It's insane. I give the Pistons. It's so cool to also have the Pistons be a relevant team. I love their uniforms. The crowd is it's a great sports town. There's always an edge to them, and they don't like Boston, they don't like New York, so it kind of feeds into all that stuff. It's great to have the Pistons back, being a competent franchise again.
What's up with your Knicks?
Well, I mean they're playing. They were gifted 7 straight home games right here. They're in the middle of it, and I think a lot of that probably had to do with taking that trip to where they go, Abu Dhabi, I think it was, for training camp. So, they're 0-3 on the road, but they play Friday night against the Miami Heat. That will be their 9th home game. After their game on Wednesday, they had played 8, and nobody else in the Eastern Conference had played more than 6 home games. So they've had a ton of home games. And then, to me, it's the same team as last year for the most part, except they improved the bench. So the guys that they wanted Tom Thibodeau to play, were Kolick and Daddier and Huck Porty. Those guys aren't playing. Then, Campaign's not even in the league anymore. Precious Achiuwa has bounced around a little bit. Now he's on Sacramento. DeLon Wright's not in the league. So they were trying to get it done with guys that weren't ready yet. And at the start of last season, you remember, Ryan, they didn't have Shamet, had the shoulder issue. And, he was out of the league in theory, but he was going to come rejoin the Knicks once he was healthy. Robinson only played in 17 games. And when he came back, he was on a minutes restriction, couldn't play back-to-back. So, and then Deuce McBride was hurt at the start of the season. So the thing that I understand, and I don't know if you feel it out where you are, living the life of a king out there. It's the weirdest thing. how their season is treated like it was a failure. I get that it was disappointing that they didn't beat Indiana, but I don't think the Knick fan, probably the Knick organization, a lot of people had the respect that for Indiana that they should be getting. Indiana destroyed Milwaukee in 5 games. They killed Cleveland in 5 games. That's Giannis. That's a 64-win team in Cleveland that they beat. The Knicks take them to 6 games, and then they go 7 games with Oklahoma City. So from January 1st on, the two best teams in the NBA were Oklahoma City and Indiana. They met in the finals. People in New York who all they did was experience losing and dysfunction, they get to the first conference final in 25 years, and it's treated like, oh, we should have done better. I get you're disappointed that you didn't, but come on now. I mean, I think it was a total overreaction. 48 hours after their season ended, they got rid of the coach. I don't understand that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, look, I'm going to talk to Bruce Feldman later on, and one of the points that I'm going to bring up with him is that I feel like the expectations / anger of these fan bases, like it's been super cranked up the last 10 years. And I don't know if that's because of the coach's salaries. There's probably a lot of people.
Twitter.
You think it's just
I
social
think
media?
I think a lot of people in the organization, I think family members of people in the organization read that stuff. I think the fans have a much bigger influence on organizations than they used to, because the only way they had an influence in the past was attending the games and booing, fire Nico in Dallas, not going to games, which means there are empty seats. But I think social media has an impact. They definitely think it has an impact.
Yeah, but like, why can't you just say, hey, this is like collectively pretty stupid right now? Like, maybe the Knicks part of it is that you're built around these two things, that it's probably kind of a scary ceiling. Like, hey, look how great Brunson is. Like, Brunson's one of the best stories in the NBA the last few seasons, right? I mean, the fact that he's taken this whole thing on when he's rolling and it's at MSG, it's so much fun. I mean, I've
Yep.
never cared about the Knicks in my entire life, and I'll have these moments where I'm like, man, it's like Brunson going off at MSG. Like, I love those games. But
Yep.
then you're like, okay, our point of attack is what? A really small point guard that his footwork is phenomenal when he's on offense, but defensively, like, we're probably going to be giving up something there. So can we hide it enough? Okay, but now what's happening? Now we're attacking Cat. And if we want to use the Mitchell, I think the Mitchell Robinson minutes, like, I looked at him a certain way, Frank, and then in the playoffs last year, I went, you know what? He's better than you give him credit for. I'm
Yeah.
like, you need to acknowledge that this guy actually is way more of a difference maker and impactfully defensively, all this kind of shit. I was so impressed with him. But then you're like, so if our 1-2 is Cat and Brunson, I wonder, it probably had way more to do with disrespecting the Pacers. It was like, hey, are they actually this good? And there was, to your point, like, if you cut the standings at a certain point, go the January 1st rule, the Richard Jefferson rule of January 1st on, and really paying attention to who a team is. They kind of were that team, but it felt like the Knicks is like, hey, this has been awesome for a couple years, but this are our 1 and 2, our two best players, like, fatally playoff flawed, and maybe that's
Yeah.
where some of the anger was. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also wonder, can you win a championship if your two best players aren't big time athletes? Now you can maybe make the case for Denver, right? I mean, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, they may not be big time athletes. I think that, and you have to be two-way players as well. You got to be, at least one of them has to play both ends of the court. Brunson's been terrific for them, and I think last year, especially against Indiana, if you go back to game one, and that's where everything changed in the series. Down the stretch, OG Anunoby missed a big free throw. Towns missed a big free throw. I think that was all in like the last 20 seconds. Then, of course, Halliburton hit the shot of the playoffs, off the back iron, straight up and down. Because in that series, Indiana outscored the Knicks by an average. I think it was average of 116 to 115. So the series was really close. And Indiana, with the style that they play, a lot of teams just couldn't handle it. They were relentless, and they come at you in waves. And I think Rick Carlisle did a really good job there. But Indiana is also a different kind of organization. They're going to be patient with their head coach, and they know what they're getting into when they have Rick, because they had him there once before. Like, Rick went, I think, his last 10 years in Dallas without getting out of the first round. They either weren't getting out of the first round, or a couple of years they spent in the lottery, but they weren't looking at it like our coach is clearly the problem. You know who else doesn't look at it like that? Pat Riley. When the team's struggling, it's not. He's thinking, I know I got the right coach. I probably have to find the right combination of players here. And think about, if you play it out, I know this is all what about, but if the Knicks had gone to the finals and the same thing happened to the Knicks as which happened to Indiana, where, God forbid, Brunson had played game 6 with a sore calf, blew out his Achilles in game 7, done for the year, and the injuries are mounting for the Knicks the way they are for Indiana, and the other night you give up 155 points in Utah and lose. You think the coach is still here today? I think the coach would have probably been gone this week. I just think the Knicks, the way that they do it there, they don't handle prosperity well. When they're losing at the guard and there's dysfunction, that's more in their wheelhouse, kind of spinning it this way and, shutting out this person. That they know, they have experience with that. When they're winning and they're successful, to me, they overreact. And that's something, they hadn't won in 25 years. So look what they did when they finally won. It didn't make any sense the way they reacted to it, in my opinion.
Before the season started, I said the Miami Heat are the most boring franchise in the NBA. I know exactly what I'm going to get. And I love Spo to death.
Yep.
There's even a couple players that I like. I've got some Jovic stock that I'm going to be hanging on to for a while, even though it may seem like certain nights they like Pelle Larsson better.
Yeah.
So you run through it, and then you go, wait, they're going to be good. Just battle with Cleveland, where they had the back-to-back matchups there. So even at 7-5, and I think the thing it's cool to see Jaquez look way more like the guy we saw his rookie year than whatever that lost version was of him his sophomore year. But the pace, they're still number one in pace. And I went through the numbers the other day. The last time I found them not in the bottom third in pace in the NBA, and we're talking like 28, 27, 24. I think they were 16th or 14th in the last year that LeBron was there. So you had to go over, and I'll double check this in case you want. I'll text it to you this weekend if this comes up at a dinner or something. But you had to go like 10 years for them not to be 20 or worse in pace. And for whatever reason, this is working out with a team that is still limited. And, I think there's also, we could expand this out. Hero becomes one of those like, man, this guy's incredibly dynamic and the shot making and the stuff that we all really prioritize. And you're like, are they actually perhaps better though, because he's not out there defensively? I don't know if that's totally fair to him, but they're doing it with pace and they're doing it with, just smart acquisitions where it feels like, hey, maybe we're going to be competitive. But then again, if they're in the play-in, I'm not going to be going, hey, look out for the Heat like we had to a few years ago.
Yeah, and I do think the addition of Norman Powell is huge. Norman Powell is probably one of the more underrated players in the league. He should have been an all-star last year. He was right on the verge of doing it. Then remember LeBron announced, was it the day before the All-Star game that he wasn't going to play? If he'd just done that a couple of days earlier, they could have installed Norman Powell as an injury replacement. I thought he deserved it. So I think he makes a big difference. My big question to you would be, whenever you start looking at certain players in the league, and Pat Riley's always big game hunting, and I understand it's Miami, would you ever consider Ja Morant if you were the Miami Heat, if you had a chance to get him? And obviously, I think Hero would likely be involved in a deal like that. Would you consider something like that if you're Miami, or do you think right now Ja's so contaminated, you're thinking, I don't know if we can do that?
I would not want to get into the job business, but I think he's always going to be an injury concern. He can't make shots right now.
Nope.
It can't be this bad, but I think it's pretty safe to say like he's almost to a level of ineptitude from the 3-point line where it's like, hey, can you keep taking these shots? But again, Memphis is giving him the keys. I saw a note too about like having to worry about a lease on a new building in a couple of years. And if Ja is still popular, then you might just say, hey, we're gonna keep this guy around. I'll kind of throw it back to you, Frank. You've talked to these guys that have run these teams now for decades. If there is like one default setting, it is you always trade for the guy that has the ceiling talent. Like these guys will do it all of the time. You're like, what about fit? I will worry about it later. It's about talent. So I think most teams, there's probably a bigger market for Ja than we realize.
I agree.
But knowing Riley and knowing Spo and all the Miami stuff, it's like, is this really the guy you want to give the keys to? It'd be one thing if he was hitting 33% of his threes. It'd be one thing if he was dunking on everybody, because like when he was at his best, it was so exciting. But I personally wouldn't want to do it, but I don't have to worry about having the job anytime soon.
Yeah.
I just feel like history tells us time and time again that the GMs cannot help themselves when the opportunity presents it to grab somebody that at one point was considered a top 10 player.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to it's so hard to get those guys. And I think Pat Riley would think long and hard about it. I tend to agree with you. I just wouldn't touch him at this point. A lot of it has to do really with the injuries more than anything. He just can't stay healthy.
I also think he's delusional too.
He's immature.
I referenced this a few times, but when Ben Simmons went on with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, when JJ was doing podcasts, he wasn't the coach of the Lakers. like, look, I'm friends with Tommy. I have somewhat, a minor relationship with JJ just because of working in media and everything like that. But I was looking forward to that because it was like, hey, they had the relationship because JJ had played with Ben Simmons. So I was like, this is probably going to be a lot of fun. Ben Simmons, after I got done listening to it, I'm like, this is even worse than I thought it was. Okay. And I texted both the guys. I was like, hey, good get. Great sit down. I couldn't be more out on this guy just based on his answers and the way he talked about his own like status and all these different things. And so, like, when I watched the Ja Morant, Jalen Rose sit down, which
Yeah.
was very coordinated, and it wasn't my favorite interview ever. And then Jalen got pissed about the criticism of the interview because then he was like, you're just jealous that I got Ja Morant. And it's like, all right, whatever. Like, I don't want to get into that. I've always liked Jalen. But watching Ja in that interview, I'm like, oh, none of this is kicking in. That like you're at kind of a crossroads here a little bit, and you still think that anybody that messes with you is the moron.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, from that, it felt like not that Jalen had it scripted, but it felt like, John Morant was, prepped before. It felt like he said, hey, how you doing? He's like, I know I made a mistake. It'll never happen. I'll try to be a good a person. It was like, well, we just asked you how you're doing. So that part of it, you could tell that it was rehearsed at John Morant's part of it. I also think, John Morant, like you said, being somewhat delusional. So you have all these issues off the court. Now I get it in the city of Memphis. He's beloved there. So maybe he doesn't look at it from that standpoint. But you're having all these problems off the court. On the court, you've been injured and underperforming. Your team's losing. So early in the season, you're publicly going to complain about your coach. You're not even going to go maybe behind the scenes and watch what you say to the media. He doesn't care. He clearly doesn't care what his image is. Now, if you look at a lot of the media people in Memphis and a lot of the fans, especially on social media, they're going after the coach in this case. And it's like the coach isn't getting the benefit of the doubt. The guy that's always a pain in the neck is getting the benefit of the doubt. So that part bothers me a little bit. He just seems to be really immature. I hope he's a spectacular player. I went to a game. It was either last year or 2 years ago. I forget now because he doesn't play that much. He had a play in the first half where he went to the basket, challenged at the rim by Nick Claxton, does a 360 in the air, lays it in. And then he said, oh, you people at the other end didn't see me. He did the same thing in the second half at the other basket. So, when he was fearless in going to the basket, you're always keeping your fingers crossed he doesn't get hurt. But he's not even doing that much anymore. Something's going to happen there. I mean, it's either going to be the coach or it's going to be the player. I tend to think it'll probably be the coach at this point because they still seem to be firmly behind John Morant. But the other team to look out for could be the team that you watched last night. I mean, don't you think the Clippers have to do something? And would they be willing to roll the dice on somebody like John Morant?
Well, I don't know how much longer they'd want to be in the Kawhi business.
Yeah.
I'd say the Kawhi thing, even though you get it in 2019, like every single team would want him, but he's a terrible partner.
Yep.
He shows up when he wants to show up, plays when he wants to play. There's no transparency whatsoever on top of everything else going with the controversy of the allegations of what it took to get him in there. I always kind of think back to that 2019 offseason with Kawhi a little, and I'm like, couldn't he have just told Lawrence Frank, like, hey, I want to come here, so try to find a way to get Paul George?
Yeah.
Because then could Lawrence go to Sam Presti and be like, hey, I know I'm getting Kawhi. I want to add Paul George. And if you want to get me a huge sticker price, like, go ahead, but I'm not going to trade you everything in SGA. Like, couldn't Kawhi have worked with the team a little bit more instead of like, hey, if you get Paul George, then maybe I'll come here. And who knows, maybe he learned it from LeBron. But you'd like to think go back, and I have no idea what's true or what isn't true on all the other stuff, but it just feels like he's an incredible bad partner for a franchise on top of the fact that he's never healthy,
Yeah, and that's why Masai Ujiri, it's got to go down as one of the greatest trades in the history of the sport, just because he was a one-year rental when Toronto got him. They traded good players away, but they didn't trade Shai Gilgeous-Alexander away to get him. You had him for 1 year. You won the championship. You're an expansion team not that long ago. What year was that? 95 when they're expansion team. Now you're winning the championship. He leaves to go to LA, and part of you is probably a little devastated. Think, oh man, we just won. The guy leaves. The Clippers with him on the team, they made it to a conference final, but he was hurt in the playoffs. He wasn't there with them. in the conference final. So the Spurs got 2 titles out of him, a Finals MVP. The Toronto Raptors got a title out of him, and the Clippers got just a lot of grief after they made that. And it's like it's not going away. And then you add on to it the trade for Paul George and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And I think they have the OKC has the Clippers pick this year. I don't think it's lottery protected. The OKC could end up, if the Clippers continue down this road. I mean, if Dallas got the number 1 pick, why couldn't the Clippers pick turn into the number 1 overall pick? Can you imagine OKC going back to back and getting the number 1 pick? Possible.
Yeah. That would be gross.
Depressing. It'd be depressing
in this draft class. I'm double checking it because I was messing around with it, solely looking at Atlanta. So yeah, I remember all of that stuff was essentially unprotected, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And by the way, I just ran a lottery and the Clippers got the number 1 pick with a 7.5% chance. And you're right, it goes to OKC.
Come on, Ryen. I mean, Sam Presti's going to sit back and say, "Here I am in little old Oklahoma City. I got all these draft picks. I just won." Now we're assuming they win the back-to-back titles, and I got the number 1 pick. Come on, he's not king of the world if he does that.
How about that? I just ran the sim to double check, and you knew it, so I didn't have to check your math or anything. And then the Clippers, ironically, ended up winning the whole thing. I want to close on, honestly, I could do this all day with you, but like you think the Clippers, all the credit in the world for not giving Paul George the 4th year. So it wasn't like they had zero interest in Paul George, because they were going to do the 3 years, but they did the rare thing of like, we're not going to give you the 4th year, and they kind of couldn't believe it. They call the bluff, and it ends up being something that. Imagine how much worse it could be if Paul George was still there and they're not playing. And then to your Heat point, that whole summer, especially all the bullshit coming out from the Miami media in the pursuit of the Damian Lillard trade, because they were the ones that were just collectively wrong like the whole time while they accused everybody else of being wrong. Lillard, if he had ended up in Miami, that's delaying whatever the next step is. Like, so that ended up being one of the best things ever is them not getting him. And again, Miami kind of felt like it was sort of personal as opposed to the deal that ended up sending him to Milwaukee, which would have been terrible for Miami. Just so many of these times, so many of these players that everybody's freaking out about all the time. It's like, careful what you wish for.
Yeah. And what do you think about Paul George now in Philadelphia? Because Philadelphia's played really well. And, Embiid's in and out of the lineup, and Paul George hasn't played yet, but, Maxey is an absolute stud. I mean, the effort that he gives on both ends of the court is phenomenal. Kelly Oubre's played really well. I was at a game last week. He scored 20 points in the first quarter against the Brooklyn Nets, and then he had that putback winner the other day against the Boston Celtics. So he's played well. And then you have VJ Edgecombe, who they drafted. The kid Jared McCain, if you could look past the silly TikTok videos, that guy competes. So if Paul George could come back and play it out, and I know this is the big if because it's hard to trust guys that are always hurt, but what if Embiid were healthy during the playoffs? And there's no back-to-backs. And maybe he could play 25 minutes a game and maybe try to score a little closer to the basket as opposed to just shooting mid-range jumpers. I mean, it's not the craziest thing. Tanking did not help.
Craziest thing? What? Like, what are you saying?
Could they win 2 rounds? Could they get to a conference final?
I just don't trust it. I mean, maybe
I get it, but Maxey's the real deal, though. Maxey's their best player. They all acknowledge it. I have no idea if Joel Embiid acknowledges it, but everyone else acknowledges that. And I think that's important. I mean, the guy's averaging 40 minutes a game. He plays all the time. And he plays with such joy. He's such an easy player to root for.
And VJ, you can tell right away. You're like, okay, like this guy is going to play for a really long time at a high level. I love his demeanor. And everybody loved him in the pre-draft process. And I feel like you can almost see that where it's like this guy feels kind of like this infectious dude. And then Embiid will come in and play in the games that he's played in. I'd say, look, it's looked better physically than it did at the very beginning of the season, which isn't terrible. I just don't know that I think the foul hunting for him has completely fucked him up as a basketball player.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. But Brian and I are always saying, if he's only going to play 25 minutes, and in the fourth quarter, I think it was the game against Boston. Not sure if it was the opener or the second game of the season.
Where he didn't play?
Where he was like 1 for 10 in the second half. It was like something crazy. If he's only going to play like 25 minutes, why even play him in the first half then? Play him in the second half. Play him like 8 minutes, rest him, put him back in the fourth quarter. If he's playing well, keep him in. I don't know. What's the point? He's only going to play 25 minutes. Why is he playing so much at the front of the game where you could probably use him at the end where he could draw fouls and maybe be more of an impact player? But they're an interesting team, a lot more interesting than they were last year. And let's remember, they tanked. They tanked and got rewarded for it. Utah lost, the Nets lost, Washington lost. They didn't get rewarded for it. Philadelphia was the one team that definitely got rewarded for pulling all their guys and getting VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, I don't know. Utah has had like just the worst luck with this stuff.
Yeah.
So, but whatever. I mean, people wanted to flatten the odds. Remember, we had 25% chance of the number one pick for the worst record. And then everybody said that incentivizes tanking. And look, I think the play-in and some of these things have. I think it has worked actually a little bit here, but then it just feels incredibly unfair. And again, this is one of those things. It's like the no good government thing. It's like no matter what system that you put in place, and everybody's going to find a reason why it's not fair for certain people. Let me leave you with this. You and Scal have this segment on the show called "Oh My Pod," where you share with the audience, a national audience. Remember, you share with us some of the highlights from some of the ex-player podcasts. I'm really excited about the Jerry Seasting pod that just dropped 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you've got on that one, but do you miss, because Draymond was going at dudes last night? Like there's a lot of this stuff. Pat Bev's got a high hit rate of going at dudes. Do you miss when players hated your guts privately?
Yeah, a little bit.
Who hated you the most?
Well, it's weird because I had a good relationship with him when he was a kid. It's probably Stephon Marbury. I knew him when he was really young. I mean, he used to call my house and he would we had a relationship when he was on Minnesota. We talked a lot. Then I had to cover him on the Knicks. I had to tell the truth. And I think that was tough for him at that time because he was coming home to New York. There's a lot of pressure there. The Knicks were losing. So I was kind of an easy target. He's definitely changed a little bit. I'm happy for him. I hope that he's happy. But he was the guy that that had absolutely no use for me, which was fine because like covering Patrick Ewing, we were really critical of Patrick. I look back at it now, it's like I always want to apologize to him. It's like, man, we held you to this crazy standard, and most of the times you met it, and you could not have been more professional. So the biggest star on the team was always really cool with the media. It's when the Knicks were losing. And the players, and I think that had something to do with the culture over there at the Garden, which changed. It was more like, kill the messenger. That's who we should be killing. We shouldn't be focused on us. We should be focused on they keep printing in the newspaper the standings. If they would stop doing that, no one would really know how bad we are. We could just maybe spin it that we're actually doing pretty well. But he was kind of the one guy. But the player podcast, I mean, they had it was a Jason Williams, White Chocolate was on with Patrick Beverley, and they were both coming to an agreement that White Chocolate was a better player than John Stockton. Okay, if you say so. And I do like the Draymond Green one because he's
was that true?
Oh yeah. You got to go find.
That's what happened.
You got to go find that. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's a fun one. But Draymond, I like his because he's an active player and he really talks about like he'll react almost in live time to something that happened. So, and he's a little bit more analytical about stuff. It's not just like, we were talking about off air. I remember the night where Steph scored 60 points in 10 minutes and everyone else is sitting back saying, we can check that. That's not really what happened. So he's not embellishing stuff. I think, remember the night he came on after the NBA finals where he had the technical foul, probably should have gotten another one. And he went on his podcast after the game. He said, they were never going to give me a second technical foul. He was basically daring the referees and calling them out during the finals. Bob Myers and Steve Kerr must have gone nuts after they heard that. They was he
in the hotel room too? Yeah. Like he was ready to go. Just
that was an unbelievable podcast for an active player to have during the NBA finals, basically saying they were never going to give me that second technical foul. That was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Thank you. Let's do this again, hopefully a few times this season. Say hi to the crew. And I've always felt bad because I do love the show so much that years back, you and I were talking and you were like, you'll come on? And I was like, of course I would come on.
Yep.
And then you were like, it's 7? I was like, what do you think I'm doing over here? I was like, of course I'll come on at 7. And then you were talking 7. And then I woke up, I don't know, 5:36. I'm like, what are all these Miss New York numbers at 4 a.m.? And it was really stupid of me not to like put it together because I know you guys are back on the East Coast. And
Yep.
then I think I even heard the replay, and there was just this disgust in the staff's voice of like, yeah, we called them like twice. You guys were like, well, who knows? And then I'm like, you guys really think I was like still
Yeah.
out on a Tuesday night? Like, come on,
Yeah.
folks.
Well, when you leave your beach house and you come east, tell us, and we definitely have to have you on. We'll make
What's
it more
the
convenient for you.
what's the latest? Is it 6 a.m. my time?
9:30 your time, which would be 6:30 your time, or 6:40 your time.
I don't know. I may even set a 5:45 alarm and come on to my favorite radio show. So
All right,
maybe,
we'd appreciate it.
But yeah, the 4 a.m. one, it was like they couldn't have possibly thought I was like up at 4 a.m. So anyway, check it out. Starting lineup, NBA Radio. Isola is one of the best. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bruce Feldman of The Athletic and Fox Sports on Big Noon Kickoff, covering the biggest games in studio. So he's our guy. There's a lot to get through here, Bruce. I guess we can start in Baton Rouge with LSU, not just on Brian Kelly being out, but now it appears that LSU's like, is there any way we can get creative with whether or not this was for cause or not? And then there's a story where it's like, well, you didn't actually fire me because this guy couldn't fire me. What's going, is LSU just being like, we want to fire you and we don't like you, so we're going to try to fuck with you and try to keep as much of this money as we can? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think that it's a desperate move by some really shaky leadership that is just it feels like it's a soap opera there because the governor's involved, and when the governor speaks out, everybody's like, is that really the governor? He sounds like that. He's this, it just seems like something out of not even out of a good college athletic show, of like a really bad one. And then they sort of clean house. Now, they really didn't, because the AD, Scott Woodward, who was on the hook for making that horrible bet on Brian Kelly, who I think anybody who was paying attention would be like, yeah, this is going to be a really awful fit. And they went that way anyway. And yet, Scott Woodward's right-hand guy, Verge Osbury, now he's the AD. Even if they kind of butchered the messaging of it, he's the acting AD. No, he's the interim. No, he's really the AD. So I don't know. It's still a really good job because you have a lot to work with, but you also have unique pressure there, like different than they have at Florida, different than they have at Penn State. And that is because before Brian Kelly, everybody who coached there won a national title. And then Brian Kelly came in there, and he couldn't even get him in the top 10. But I think that's also a piece of, hey, the bottom of the SEC, like the rest of major college football, has gotten more formidable because of NIL and the portal. And it's just the days of the superpower aren't as common as they were 5 years ago.
So now that LSU, I guess there's like a bigger thing maybe that I'll get into with Kelly, but I'll connect it to some of the other things. Like, is this still the best job of all the jobs that are available?
I think it is, because all these jobs that are open, Auburn's open, they all have some BS factor to a large degree, right? Penn State hasn't won a national title in 40 years. You're still in a conference where Ohio State has a sizable gap over you, and they're operating at a much more efficient level than Penn State is. Florida, since Urban left, they've tried everything. They've tried the hot assistant, Will Muschamp, the guy who was the former Urban guy who'd been in the SEC, Dan Mullen. They fired the group of 5 guys, whether it was McElwain or Billy Napier, who had done well, and then they didn't do well there. So I think at LSU, what you have to keep in mind is, as you know, there is a great talent base there, and almost all those kids grow up wanting to be LSU Tigers, right? You have the best home field atmosphere, and that definitely counts for something. And you have largely unlimited resources when it comes to getting stuff done, whether it's hiring staff or a bloated staff or all those things. The challenges are the pressure, one, and also you get these, if you look back in the cycle that Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley were both hired in 2021, if you look back at how those hires worked out, the hires that seem to have gone the best were the ones that were like the first-time hires. Not the, hey, big name splash guy. That was Brian Kelly. That was Lincoln Riley. Those have been kind of meh or disastrous. Then there's the ones who are like the step up guys, and those have been okay. But it's really been the first time, whether it's the Marcus Freemans or there's been the majority of them, not at Virginia Tech certainly, but have gone really well. It's just you don't think LSU, the way they're structured, they want splash, they want a big established name, and a lot of times those don't fit, and a lot of times you end up being leveraged a lot. So I'm curious to see who LSU ends up landing on.
Do you think if Kelly were just nicer and they had the same results, he'd still be the head coach?
But then he wouldn't be Ryan Kelly.
Yeah, right, right.
How many times even before when he was at Notre Dame, I think there was he was largely dealing with a different kind of kid, mostly on the team. Not all of them, but some of them. And then when he went down there, I think it was like he couldn't relate and didn't want to recruit. That's the other big part of this. Like when I worked on Ogeron's book after 2019 when they won the national title, I distinctly remember like every 5 minutes there would be a different staffer coming up to him with an iPhone and a recruit on the other side, basically saying, "Hey, can you talk to so and so?" And he would know all about what they did in the previous game and all this, and he could BS with them. When that happened with Brian Kelly, he would say, make an appointment to the assistant coaches. You don't do that. He was like the guy would put the kid on the hold and be like, wait, I got him on the phone right now. I can't wait till Thursday. That you don't know how that looks. And so there's that part of it. I mean, when Ralph Russo and I did a big deep dive into why Kelly really bombed at LSU, one of the players, it was a starting center for him for 2 years, was like, I had no relationship with him. He didn't even try to get to know me, and I think those things matter, and so there was that. There was just so many different layers of it. I think also, you talk to people, they thought he cashed out there, that he would spend a lot more time golfing than he did really around the building and doing all those things. And you know what? Like you're at LSU. Yeah, your resources are higher and the expectations are higher, but you're playing a lot tougher teams. You're in the deep end of the pool now. You're not playing Purdue and all the academies and Boston College. It's a much tougher, like you better have your A game or else you're going to get your head kicked in.
I want to stay on this though, because it's not even about Kelly, but like if I were an AD and I'm looking at recent stuff, and like I don't know that you can even put Belichick in a category. The Belichick thing is different, and maybe I need to come up with more examples of this. Like clearly, you could talk about like Jimbo, which is another Woodward thing at A&M. If I'm an AD, I'd be cautious of like giving someone their lottery ticket. That's the huge name. That's a little bit older because it feels like if I have to convince you to take the job and I have to convince you with money, then immediately like we're already done. It's I need more examples of this, but I don't think I would let somebody come in and use the program as like, hey, this is my retirement, like going up a tier, whether this works or doesn't. And I know the name brand thing, it's like a cycle. It's like obviously LSU will probably go non-name brand now and somebody younger and hungry and all those things. And that doesn't exactly guarantee success at all. But there seems to be a bit of a trend of like the guys that just hit that lottery ticket on that last deal, leaving some other place. Like I just don't know if they're as motivated. And certainly it was the case with Kelly.
Yeah, I think some of that, Ryan, is arrogance, where it's like, oh, I know better. A lot of coaches, and I've definitely had conversations over the years with guys, they look at somebody, they're like, that guy's an idiot, and he won there. You know what? That guy's probably a lot smarter than you realize. But you're actually the idiot because you can't even see it. You just assume, oh, this is how he sounds at a press conference, so he doesn't know what he's doing, right? And I've definitely seen that with a lot of guys who come out really entitled and they think they've figured it out. I mean, one of the best things I think anybody would say about Nick Saban was he kept on evolving. He kept on trying to get better. These guys who are doing largely what you're saying, whether they're 65 or 57, I think it's because they feel like they've figured it out. This is the way I do things. They're going to adjust to me. And it's a lot harder. I think in this day and age where now players are making more money than some of your assistant coaches, right? And you constantly have to re-recruit your players for retention. And you better be a good evaluator because you're going to do a lot more evaluation now, right? I mean, I will say this, the guy Kelly followed was obsessed with recruiting, and he's a really good evaluator. And that matters because who else wanted Joe Burrow when, he wasn't going to start at Ohio State? Cincinnati did, but that was it. And I think it's like you better have a good eye for talent. And I also think if you are in this role, and I think it's something that happens with older coaches, is they struggle to, like, the staffs are bigger. There's just so many more things now that can trip you up. And I look at, like, it's not just Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's like the best example of it, but there are definitely pieces of it. I mean, look, Lane Kiffin got fired when he was out here at USC. The guy who's coaching Ole Miss is a much more evolved version than there's still Lane in there, but I think, credit to him because he's not the same guy who Nick Saban wanted to punt on in the playoffs because he was, ready to go to FAU before the season was over, right? And I think those guys who evolve are the ones who are thriving. The ones who just feel like they know better, those are the ones who cash out and end up, getting, Jimbo when he was at A&M, he didn't evolve. And I think that caught him when he got to A&M. It started to catch him when he was at Florida State, but he got out of there before the thing imploded.
I was shocked to learn this week that Jimbo's 60. He's only 60. I
It's a
don't
lot
know
of hard
why.
living and putting peanuts in those Cokes. And I guess maybe that like being a football coach is not especially a college football coach, I think is not a healthy lifestyle, right? I mean, good on Marcus Freeman that he looks this way at this age, but if he does it for another 10 years, he's probably going to start looking, maybe not like he's 60, but I just think that very few of those guys come out, if you go to the NFL, different story. Ryan, like multiple coaches a week I hear from, not every day, but more than one a week will call and be like, I got to get to the NFL. Like this sucks, and it's bad for being a parent and everything else. And if they can go, they go to the NFL because there's at least a little more of a semblance of a real calendar, and you're not just kind of like constantly feeling like you're chasing your tail.
That also means that Jimbo Fisher, I think, is 49 then when he won the national championship. I
Yeah,
don't
that
feel like
math
I've,
sounds about right. 49,
yeah,
48, I guess. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like I haven't done anything with my life. And so when I read stuff like that, I'm like, oh, man. Um, Jimbo's not in play at LSU, safe to say. I read that somewhere. I
No,
imagine
I
that
don't
doesn't
think
make a ton of
so.
sense.
I don't think so. I think even at Auburn, that would feel like a reach. You never know in college. Like here's the problem these schools run into. They talk themselves out of quality group of five head coaching candidates who might be good fits because they're like, just we can't hire them here. The boosters just it's like they look down their nose. Can LSU boosters get past? We might hire the Tulane guy. I don't think Auburn would have that problem to hire John Summerall, but I do think there's some of them who like, we can't do that. Or also they'll go like, look how it worked out with the Louisiana Lafayette guy. He didn't do well at Florida. So I think I think it's hard for them as ADs and for schools to get past it. I just think I don't know where Jimbo lands. I think because he's been out of it for a little while, you wonder how hungry he is to really get back in. This isn't like Rich Rod who went to Jacksonville State and killed it and like, oh, I could see this guy's just obsessed with coaching and doing it that way. And it's gonna probably work where he goes to a certain point. I don't know if people look at it the same way with Jimbo.
I'm gonna do this segment at some point, but like when you looked at the early 2000s through kind of like Saban messing up the math, but you can make a case because I remember Andy Staples went through and did this, and it was really interesting. It was like basically by the third year on the job, if you looked at this run of national championships, it was always like when the new coach won it. Like the new coach got there, and you're incredibly motivated. You're at one of these absolute blue blood programs, and you're probably trying your hardest in those first 3 to 4 years, especially if you're like turning things around. You've got the momentum. You hit it on two recruiting classes. You're obviously not dealing with the portal and all the NIL stuff of back then, so it's a slightly different landscape. But it was pretty clear that for a while there, until again Saban messes it up because he just kept winning and winning and winning, that these coaches were doing it early on. So you look at Cignetti. This team has a chance, I think, to win a national championship. Again, I don't know that I'd pick them against Ohio State, but that I'm even saying that about Indiana is just how much better I feel about them this year than I did last year. And I've seen it written like, hey, Cignetti's like messing up the expectations everywhere else. Well, this has already kind of happened with people winning national championships, and who knows if Cignetti's going to be able to pull that off with this playoff team. But is there a sense that you get that that ADs and boosters are going, well, look at what Indiana is doing. Like how can we, not that everybody gets to be Indiana, but that it may really mess with the lesser educated college football person that's somehow influential in this decision.
Absolutely. Excuses are out the window because look what they did at Indiana. They were a three-win team the year before he showed up, right? You hired a guy in his early 60s who almost nobody outside of like diehard football fans and people in Pennsylvania had ever heard of. And he went in there, he talked big, and he backed it up. Now, I everything you said, I agree with. It would not shock me if they won the national title. Like they're really good. Now, a couple of things have helped him in the system. He brought a bunch of dudes from JMU who he knew really well with him. Like in the old model, you can't do that. And I think that's what changes, like what you were saying, 20 years ago. You get one or two really good recruiting class and then you establish it. Like, look at our buddy's team in College Park, right? Like, Loxley has a very good freshman class. They got really good edge rushers, a really talented freshman quarterback. These guys may be gone 3 months from now because, and it's not like he's a second year coach. He's been there a long time, but I'm just saying this is probably the best recruiting class he's ever had there. And you can't wait too long for them to blossom if you don't surround them with a lot of other guys who are ready to go. And I think because Cignetti hit it so fast, I think anybody looks at it and goes, "Oh well, I'm sure you've heard this where some coach goes in there and was like, well, this is year zero. Like that really didn't count. It's like, oh yeah, it definitely counted. They paid you for it, and they're going to expect
I,
before
I
too
love,
long."
by the way, I just love like the built-in excuse of year zero. And for some cases, it's like true, but I've noticed it was back to like the Florida thing where like Muschamp got in. I think it was Muschamp where he was like, you have no idea how bad it was here. Right. So then it makes Muschamp look good. And then I forget if it was Muschamp on the way out. I think it was, but it was like, don't let the next coach tell you that there's not a bunch of great players. You're just like, you were trying to get it on both ends. And honestly, like looking at Florida's success here, they would love to have the Muschamp era back. Would love to have it, even though he was such a huge, huge name, coach in waiting, which isn't a thing anymore. Like getting him down to Gainesville, like was felt like it was this massive win. I just love the whole year zero thing because that's just not going to fly anymore. It's not going to work unless it's like Indiana probably could have gotten away with it, and if they'd had like a 7-5 season the next
That
year,
would have been a
that
good
would
year
have
by
been
then.
right.
Yeah.
They'd be like, hey, this guy's pretty good. We might lose him. But keep going because I obviously have another Cignetti future follow up.
Yeah, no, I just think that you look around enough. Like Mike Elko went to Duke. He got it going pretty fast and he bounced and he's gotten it going really fast at Texas A&M, and that was a smart hire by them and it's worked. And I think, look, Barry Odom took over the other school in the state of Indiana in the Big Ten. That is a tough lift. That is a bad program right now. But he didn't waste time to get UNLV going. Like I give him a lot of credit because he did a decent job at Mizzou. He took over a tough situation with Gary Pinkel, stepping down, and they were okay. They weren't great. It wasn't a disaster. He learned and really figured out a bunch of stuff from being around Kirby Smart and other guys he worked with. And then when he got to UNLV, he made some really smart hires and he killed it there. And then he ended up getting the Purdue job, which is probably unfortunate for him because last year's cycle there were very few jobs open, and this year's cycle there's a lot of jobs open. So I think it's also timing factors into it as well.
Cignetti's good then, right? Like they're not going to figure out. I know they just did the new deal, but
No,
there's
I mean, if I was a Penn State fan, I'd be like, man, we should have thrown everything we could have to get. I mean, a Pittsburgh guy, he's right in the same conference. I just don't think after what they did that he's movable, right? And it doesn't sound like he wants to be movable. And if you're him, a little bit like Lane, I bet you he sits there and goes, you know what? I could probably win a national title. I beat Oregon at Oregon. I can beat anybody, and I think he has so much confidence in his ability to evaluate and not just evaluate players, but also I think evaluate assistants. He's got two really good young coordinators that I don't think anybody. Bryant Haynes on defense and Mike Shanahan, not the Mike Shanahan, is on offense. And those guys are really good. I mean, he's got good assistants. Like I don't think we talk enough about as college football media about guys who can identify really good coaches and put it together. He's done that. Like I mean, for all the bluster. And I think, you and I were probably on the same page last year when the playoff was kicking around and it was like, I want to say he went on like a pregame show
he did.
and it was just like, I forgot what you'll remember it. I bet what the game was. It was like an FCS game or something that he was like, yeah, they were ranked. And it was just like, it was
It was
something
like we
that
beat ranked teams, and it was like it was even the
it
guys on the
was.
set weren't really feeling it all that much.
No, but now, I mean,
Yeah,
after you go to Autzen and you give Dante more hell, you can talk all the stuff you want to talk. You've earned it, and he has. And so, I don't think he's movable at this point. And it's like if you're an AD right now, good luck to you to find a good option because you have also a cycle of coaches who are probably attractive in this window who are also at their alma maters, whether it's Jeff Brom or Brent Key or Kenny Dillingham or Clark Lee. I think Jeff Brom would be a really interesting hire at a lot of places. And I'm sure he'll probably end up doubling his salary whether he stays or goes, because they're going to probably have to do that.
yeah. He was basically talking about the Coastal Carolina game when he was at James Madison. He says we don't just beat top 25
Grayson
teams.
McCall deal. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
beat the shit out of him, and Grayson was like banged up. Didn't he get knocked out? I mean, it was. I remember doing a segment on it because I got super mad about it, and everything I said last year is totally justified. Now everything I've given them as far as praise wants the Oregon win, and look, I thought that Penn State game was really tough. I thought it was a talented Penn State team at home trying to show some pride and being fired up, and even with Aller out, like I just thought that was a really tough win. So I don't even knock them for having to score a game-winning touchdown against a team with a losing record like that because I just thought Penn State was a tough out that day. I guess I kind of want to stay on the Cignetti thing here a little bit because I am fascinated by him now. He joined Saban's staff in '07 at Bama. So that's probably something that should have been like on everybody's radar. It's like one of the first people that Saban's bringing in is this guy when they turned Bama around. Do you remember him throughout those early, like amazing years? Like anybody saying anything about him or just, hey, keep this guy on your radar? Because you've always been kind of good with some of the younger guys at the time.
Yeah, the only thing I really remembered about him was before I did Meat Market, the recruiting book I did around Ole Miss. Like when I was at ESPN magazine, we tried to do some version of that, not as a book, but as a story. And one of the first schools I approached it was, remember Chuck Amato? There's like a
Yeah.
great, I don't know if it lives
Bench
on the
press.
internet still. Yeah,
The legend.
and
Yeah.
Chucky Red Shoes, and there was like a classic like cartoon somebody did of him. Florida State assistant goes to NC State, and I had some guys I knew pretty good on that staff. I mean, a phenomenal group of characters that Chuck Amato collected there. But anyway, Cignetti was on that staff, and so at some point, like the three guys I knew, or two of them, and I think Cignetti, who I didn't know very well, um, the two of the guys were like, "Oh yeah, Chuck will go for this," and Chuck wasn't going to go for this, so that was a non-starter. But I remember him back then. And then I also remembered, I forgot I had talked to him for this, but years ago, like maybe this is maybe like 8 years ago, 6 years ago, NFL Network, I think they did their top 100 players, and the top four guys were none of them were big recruits out of high school. It was Aaron Donald, it was Lamar, Russell Wilson. I forgot who the other guy was. They all had really interesting recruiting stories. And so Cignetti was on for Russell Wilson. I think that was the connection. I'm trying to remember. Um, when who I had spoke to him about.
Right.
And it was interesting to hear him talk his way through, kind of his recruiting, his, I don't want to say his sales pitch, but just like there is something there where it feels like it is very well thought out, and there's other parts like, no, that's really him under there. I know one of the guys on his staff I know really well, and he's like, no, that's him, but he knows the effect it's having. Like, I mean, Mark Ingram, who I work with on Big Noon, Mark remembers being recruited by Cignetti at Alabama, and um, he's an interesting character. There's still like a lot of salesmen. I'd be curious as to it seems like he's one of those guys that would work better in college than in the NFL. And I think big part of that is because one of his, superpowers is he's got a really good sense of evaluation. But I think he's the most fascinating guy right now in college football, and it's because he's got some of the Saban tree and he's got different roots. He's a coach's kid. His brother's a coach. He goes back there's a lot of people who have different perspectives on him. And even, I don't want to say who this person is, but I was once in a conversation with somebody who has known Cignetti for a long time. And at some point it came up and it was like, there's a little bit of Jim Harbaugh in him too. And it's authentic. Sometimes you think he's crazy, but it is real. And players respond to that. And that's a big deal in these, especially in this day and age.
And Penn State's now not going to get him. I do love Chuck Amato. He looked like he was already ready to just at any given moment, ready to shag some fly balls and leave with your girlfriend. So, Mr. Steal Your Girl, Coach Amato. Let's kind of go a little quicker on some of the vacancies then. So, like, do you have a favorite at LSU now, if you had to?
I don't. I
That's
mean, I
okay.
would, I wouldn't be shocked if they made a move at Drinkwitz because he's been in the SEC, but I don't know if that's one they're going to be like, I don't know if this is going to be any better of a fit than what they just had.
I would like the Drinkwitz hire, to be honest with you, because he's fitting the profile of like the younger, hungrier guy. Mizzou is a good team.
He's
They're
done a really good job there. And
yeah,
now they're on the third string quarterback. I mean, credit to him. He
right.
beat Ohio State, depleted Ohio State in a bowl game, but he's a good coach.
Yeah, I don't. Some of these fan bases, man, it's like, how long's the list of people you're going to be excited about? 1.5? Like, it's just like, hey, well, we don't want that guy. All right. Good old Auburn. Good old Auburn.
I think that's John Sumrall. John Sumrall did really well at Troy in the state. He was a former SEC player. He was a former SEC assistant at Ole Miss at Kentucky. He's done a good job at Tulane, and I think anybody who talks to them was like, "Oh yeah, that's a dude." Like, I mean, if you talk to him, there's a handful of coaches I could say right now who are head coaches. I'm like, "Oh yeah, if you're around them, you'd be a believer." And John Sumrall is at the top of that list.
What happens in Florida?
I could see them dancing around with Lane for a little bit and then thinking, oh, we got Eli in the pocket. This is the one search that overlaps with LSU. The other one that's a wild card in this for me is Jed Fish. I know he said he doesn't want to be, talked about on these lists. That's his alma mater. I know he has, a special place in his heart. He broke into the business because he was leaving. He left like 400 notes on like 400 days in a row, left a note on Steve Spurrier's car as a regular student there and finally got in as a student assistant and worked his way up. He likes the state of Florida. I think Jed Fish would be a good hire for them. He did an amazing job at Arizona. He's off to a pretty good start at Washington. I know he loves his quarterback, but honestly, guys move. His quarterback followed him to Arizona, from Arizona to UW. I think if they came at him and said, "Hey, we want you, not Eli or whatever," I think he would have a hard time saying no.
What about Penn State?
And I don't know where they go on this one because the one I thought they should go after, Cignetti got locked up quick. The one I thought they would go after because it's, Pat Kraft, the AD, is so tight with Matt Rule. Matt Rule's staying at Nebraska, and good for Nebraska on that. But I don't know. I mean, do they talk themselves into trying to get Clark Lee out of Vanderbilt? Do they look and say, do they go after do what kind of Indiana did and take the James Madison coach who has ties in the area, Bob Chesney, and he's a sharp young coach, and I think not that young, but I think that would make sense. I don't know if they go after Matt Campbell. They could go in any direction at this point. Like what I would be surprised at is that they went big name hunting. Like I just think there aren't big names that are probably in play for them.
It was funny back in the day. There was always the rumor that James Franklin was going to end up at SC. I think there were people that just maybe hadn't even reported it, but were convinced that it was
Yeah.
going to happen. And then obviously that doesn't happen. Is Franklin Virginia Tech thing done, by the way, or what's going on
I
with
don't think
that?
it's done. I think he's the guy they want. And I think from what I had heard, he's got an eye going, man, if Florida State opens up, I would like to be at Florida State. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if Florida State's going to open. But I didn't think Florida State would be this bad, to be honest. So I could see them. I just don't know if you're Florida State, do you fire a Mike Norvell without a plan and going, okay, we're good with James Franklin. I mean, James Franklin won a ton of games at Penn State, and I don't know if it just got stale there and he needed to shake up the staff a little more. I think that'd be a good landing spot for him. I also think Virginia Tech would make a lot of sense just geographically. He's recruited in that same footprint. I think he knows the ins and outs of that program because his old right-hand guy was also the right-hand guy for Brent Pry. So he knows everything there is to know about Virginia Tech. He'll have more intel on it than anybody. But I would say those are the two that are, it's either if Florida State doesn't open up, then he's there. The other thing to keep in mind is the agent who reps Mike Norvell also represents James Franklin, so he probably would have a decent lay of the land on that.
It is interesting to think of Franklin, whether or not that's the kind of introduction that a fan base is excited about, which seems totally ridiculous because he has won a ton of games. And I wouldn't always say he's my favorite. I think it was pretty evident that a lot of people really respected his program building and his recruiting. They didn't necessarily think like, hey, this is the guy that you want game planning. Uh, I mean, that shit's been out there for years. I think there was even some polls too, like where it was other coaches who were just like, "Oh, he's one of the most overrated coaches." Maybe it becomes a personality thing, but I understand the frustration of Penn State's fan base and certainly the boosters. But there must have been something where they were just sort of sick of him because that's a lot of games to win to be fired. As disappointing as this year was, I was like, again, he wasn't my favorite, but even I thought that's a kind of a ridiculous move.
It's a long time to be anywhere without winning a national title. I don't unless you're at like Iowa. I just don't. I think people get tired of you, and
They
look,
did get tired of him, but
yeah.
go. I mean, look, he wasn't there all 40 years.
No, he was not.
You
He
know,
absolutely was not. And he brought the program up from where it was. I think O'Brien started that, but I think he really elevated it. He got kids wanting to go there. I think the biggest thing that hurt him was the quarterback evaluation wasn't great. The first one he brought in was the best one, and that was Trace McSorley, who was going to go play quarterback or safety for him at Vandy, and then he came with him, and he was a really good college quarterback. And I also think it helped that he had Joe Moorhead, who was his best offensive coordinator, and that fit. And at that time they were a kind of a fun team to watch. They had dynamic receivers. They obviously had Saquon, who was phenomenal. And they started what they were really good at was they would develop these freaky athletes. Micah Parsons is probably the best one, but there was a bunch of other ones. Whether it's now Abdul Carter, but there was a bunch of other ones, and I think he had a good eye for that. It was just when it came to the quarterback piece, they were good enough and talented enough to win 10 games. They came up against Ohio State. Ohio State was just always probably a little more talented than them and probably a lot more comfortable in the big games than they were.
As we finish this out, just a bigger picture thing. We could talk about the money to the players, the coaches' salaries that just keep skyrocketing, the buyouts that are paid by these boosters that I don't understand, even though, the argument's like, well, the school doesn't actually do that. But it's like, okay, but if you're asking boosters to pass the hat and put together millions to do the buyout, like that's going to limit the pool of like how willing those same guys are. Like, hey, the next thing we need over here is like this. It's like, well, I just gave you all this money to move on to get the next new coach. So like there's a limit. Even with these people, like there's probably a limit on how much you can ask. And I'd argue, like, look, you can even look at Ohio State last year with Ryan Day. That fan base felt justified in being that pissed off about that game against Michigan. And then they go on and win, obviously, a national championship, right? So they've lost to Michigan 4 times in a row. There's an angriness, right? And it's not just Columbus, but I think there's an entitlement, there's an anger, there's an absurd expectation. It just feels like it's even different than just 10 years ago in this sport. And I don't think it has anything to do with just, oh, well, the payment to the players has escalated all this stuff. Are you feeling that? Are you seeing the same thing when you're talking to coaches, you're talking to ADs, and you even hinted on a little bit where guys are just like, hey, how do I get to the NFL? But I'm just wondering, like, it seems like the temperature's just been incredibly dialed up in this sport where expectations are almost like just outrageous at almost any program with any kind of history.
They are. I think it's 100% true. And I think some of the factors you alluded to are definitely a part of it, right? The portal is an interesting piece of it because on one hand, you can flip your roster in a hurry. On the other hand, you're bringing in a completely different locker room. And so how does Florida State is a good window into this. They went from being a team that probably should have made it to a playoff to a team that was 2-10 because they lost, Jared Verse. He came from, what the Albany Great Danes are. Like that's where he was playing. They got him and he turned out and he's a beast in the NFL, right? That was a great addition. But he left. Braden Fisk was a really good player they got from the MAC. He left, after he's done. Then all of a sudden they made bad evaluations. You brought DJU in, nice guy, but just was not going to be the answer at quarterback. And I think so those things add to it. And then it's like the teams that can evaluate and figure the portal are the teams that really have a chance. The teams that don't, they are going to shrivel up. And what's happened though is you've already irked the fans because I think there's a portion of the fans who can't get past these guys are getting paid. I would do this for nothing. Okay, well, nobody would come pay $2 to watch you play rec basketball. Why are we going to pay to watch you put on shoulder pads? But that's how a big chunk of the fan base, not a big, but a sizable chunk feels. And then there's another part of it where the coaching salaries have gotten so much bigger and they are public, unless it's like, largely public, maybe we don't know what Lincoln Riley exactly makes, but we know what everybody else makes. And you're seeing coordinators who are making, $2 and $3 million. And, it's just kind of fascinating. You mentioned Belichick earlier. I think one of the more fascinating things about all this is they went in there and it's him and his GM went in and thought, oh, we know what it looks like to be an NFL player. Great. That ain't what you're going to be playing with on Saturdays.
Right.
And so until you figure that out and realize that it's a different animal. And I think that's why, I don't know if that's exactly the reason why most college coaches as head coaches end up, if they haven't been in the NFL, other than maybe Harbaugh and Pete Carroll had been in the NFL before he went back, they bomb because they don't know what they don't know. I mean, Urban, bombs spectacularly with the Jaguars. He knows what he surrounds himself with really savvy people in college, but in the NFL, it was a different world. And I think right now, the college world has changed dramatically from where it was in 2015, right? So you look, and part of why I think you and I both think Indiana has a chance to win the national title is because the team that beat TCU like 4 years ago, 65-7, that Georgia team ain't around anymore, right? And so a lot of those things just you can't stockpile players that way anymore. You just can't. Like one of the best edge rushers in the SEC used to be at Georgia. He's probably got more sacks than the whole Georgia team, and now he's at Missouri. So it's just like that's kind of like created this weird dynamic where you're just not able to, people's expectations are way higher and the reality is way lower.
But right as we finish up, though, because like it does feel like this, and other people have argued with me, being like, "Hey, it is different. It is different." It's like, yeah, it's so different that we just had Michigan and Ohio State, two, spunky little upstarts, win back-to-back national championships. So, like, if Indiana were to win it this year, then it becomes, hey, this whole thing is different. And I would agree with you. Like when I've gone back and looked at like the SEC stuff, like they used to just destroy teams and embarrass teams in those like week one matchups, where you were just like, oh my God, like this is a completely different level. And those scores haven't really been there. I mean, the SEC had a really good out of conference against the P4 stuff for the most part, better than any of the other conferences. But Indiana winning a title would mean that like it's all on the table. So in a weird way, the pressure that felt like it was only at the select few programs, that pressure would now be expanded. Like Purdue would make a coaching change and be like, why not us? Because of Indiana. So who knows? It could actually get even worse. Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate it. Love watching you on Saturday. So check him out on Fox. And of course, read him every single week on The Athletic. That's Bruce Feldman. Thanks.
Thanks, Ryan.
You want details? Fine. I drive a Ferrari 355 Cabriolet. What's up? I have a ridiculous house in the South Fork. I have every toy you can possibly imagine. And best of all, kids, I am liquid. So, now you know what's possible. Let me tell you what's required.
Our email address is lifeadvicerr@gmail.com. Hit us up with some emails and we'll get to it. And please subscribe to the Ryen Russillo Show on Barstool, on Apple or Spotify or our YouTube page. Okay, Kyle, Steve, we have guys representing today a little bit here. What do we got? Kyle, that's the Drake May, right? That's the 10.
That's the Drake May. Got a little I bought a couple Carhartt long sleeves yesterday. I'm really settling into this Northeast thing. So I just threw that guy on under here. Yeah, looking at some thicker options down the road, but right now it's still early fall-ish. So yeah, excited with how the closet's looking these days.
You got a winter coat?
Yeah, got myself a big puffy North Face.
Nice.
Feathers are already coming out of it.
Welcome home.
Super excited.
Are you going to stand outside of the barbershop and yell at kids? Have you found a place that you can go to and just yell at kids and smoke cigarettes?
It's all on the table. I think I'm zeroing in on one place. It's like a German sort of dive thing with good food, called Schatzi's. I'm circling that. I think I'll be there tonight.
Schatzi's.
Yeah.
Right, but that would be the German spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Not like Z party time.
Oh,
Daytona
I just realized
Beach.
how that sounds.
Yeah.
I just realized how that sounds. No, SCHAT. There is a Z in there, though. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, but I think there was a spelling maybe, again, some other people were. All right, so you get the Drake May thing going. I bought a Carhartt zip up at Murdoch's Ranch Supply while I was in Montana, and I was fucking pumped about it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, you get these fancy Montclairs, you get the Canada Goose, but honestly, like Carhartt insulated sleeves, can you do worse than that?
Carhartt's weird though, right? Because it's also worn by like, the influencer wannabe people that look tough.
Yeah.
So I stay away from Carhartt, not because I don't like their stuff. I just feel like I don't belong in Carhartt. That's not me.
I feel like I'm grandfathered in forever because I actually had
fair.
to wear it for real for a time. And I wore that same outfit every day for months and months and months.
Yeah. Just walking around, the sort of blue collar parts of towns, like those guys aren't worried about, Todd in LA wearing his beanie. They're like,
no,
this is what I wear Carhartts and I get one every 3 years and then I wear the shit out of it. That's how it is.
I do think it is funny. I saw this thing that like people are like buying like these vintage Carhartt, like whatever jackets for hundreds of dollars. And I was like, imagine like one got Bob who's been like,
Bob in Pleasant Valley is like, oh my God, can I sell these?
Yeah, he's like,
is it better if there are burn holes in them? Hell yeah.
Yes, actually, probably.
Yeah, it is.
The guy's like tougher, and some like random guy in LA is just wearing this worn in Carhartt.
Yeah,
I just love the
they're in
idea of that.
Nordstrom, dude. You go in Nordstrom, they have a whole Carhartt section. Like they did a deal with them, and it's just like, this is different, man. I don't know.
Those guys aren't using any of the scent boosters.
Nah,
on
probably
those overalls.
not.
My
The
guide when
welding
I was
stains
in,
are real.
yeah, my guide in Montana had the Carhartt seat covers, and I got to tell you,
Nice.
I was jealous.
Bro, I was in the department store in town today. They got Carhartt like the outside jacket material, brown stockings. Uh, if you're fucking serious about it.
Has it gone
For
too far?
Christmas?
Maybe.
She's like, they're
Wait,
flying out of here.
Christmas stockings? Are we talking?
Oh yeah.
Christmas
Oh, okay.
stockings. Yeah. Christmas stockings, but with that like brown canvas jacket material. She's like, they're flying out of here if you want to get them. I'm like, no, I just think it's interesting. She's like, okay.
We get a lot of T-shirt ideas sent in,
Oh,
so
The one you retweeted was funny.
yeah. I mean, honestly, some of you guys are incredibly creative, so hats off to you. All right. Look. Hotel room for friend's sister. Do I need to buy a hotel room for my best friend's sister? 6', 185, D3, all conference defensive back. Some background. My best buddy. What's that?
Nice. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, Cerruti, you probably take the lead on
Gonna
this
make
one.
a coverage joke. That's good.
Shout out to D3. Gotta really love it.
Background. My best buddy, let's call him Ben, and I are very close. Both senior captains on the football team live together this summer. Families are close, etc. In short, I do anything for him. His sister, we'll call her Liz, visits a few times a year. Her and I get along really well. And to be honest, she's a smoke show D1 athlete. Uh-oh. Fast forward to this past weekend, Liz and the rest of her family are visiting for our senior day. And that night, the three of us headed off to the bars. As the night progressed, Ben noticed that Liz was getting pretty handsy with me, and I wasn't completely shying away. He pulled me aside. But as I began to apologize, he tells me he's fine with whatever's going on and that he trusts me. Later on in the night, Liz kissed me on the dance floor, but I made sure nothing else happened. Eventually, I made sure she got a ride back to her hotel, and then I went back to my place. Since then, Liz and I have been texting often, and she let me know she's coming to our game again this weekend, but without the rest of her family. Coincidentally, Ben and I's fraternity has a formal this weekend after our game. So after asking, there's a lot of details in this, buddy. So I'm just, no, this isn't some fucking local pod, but yeah. Purdue Weekly. So after asking Ben and I, getting his full approval, I asked Liz to the dance. She, of course, said yes. I know I'm the man. But now my question is, do I have to buy her a hotel room? Should I assume Ben and her will figure it out? Or do I have to have that awkward conversation with Ben about where his sister is going to sleep Saturday night? Thanks and love the show. Well, it sounds like you guys have. Oh, all right. Look, you guys. We all have sisters, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Who wants to go first?
I was gonna originally say when he initially said that, like, well, I'm okay with whatever's happening here. I was gonna ask, like, what hour into happy hour were we? Like, how far along did this? Because some guys will say shit and, like, you just made a whole business plan and like, you're supposed to have a meeting at 10 o'clock the next day and no one remembers any of it. So I would initially ask, like, how.
A lot of
How far
startups
along?
were like a lot of startups that have not followed through. There's like a
Totally.
certain time.
Totally.
I remember
You
the
know how
first
many
time
times
like
I set up a bacon, egg, and cheese truck in LA. I'm like, dude,
Oh, yeah.
there's not one anywhere, and
Yeah.
we never moved
A
forward.
lot of podcasts were starting.
And now I'm
late
not even
nights,
there
yeah.
anymore. So left.
Yeah,
that
but
one
think
on the
about
table.
just the mental hours of preparation that once you have that truck and the ingredients and you're ready to go,
How far
you've already
ahead you
done.
are.
Yeah, you've already done the work.
I should have a folder somewhere by now. But then he said that he
Where's my bacon, egg, and cheese folder? Did we lose this in the move?
Right. Would it be hard to adjust the prices from 2022 to 2026? I don't even know. But then
There's
he
probably,
said that
there's probably a food supply guy that can run some calculations for you.
yeah, I'm
But go
sure
ahead.
AI's all things are possible. But then he said that he asked his buddy if his sister could come to the formal, and then
Yeah.
he knows that the family isn't involved. It sounds like this guy's already like, at least you're not a jerk, or at least it's not like a random guy. I think there's certain kind of guys that have that ability to be like, well, could be worse. And some guys are just like, never, ever, friendship has to end over this. It sounds like you got a guy that's going to make this kind of easy on you. I don't know. What's your hotel funds like? Check on Hotel Tonight. See if there's any promo codes. Maybe just get one for $150. But, sounds like you guys are going to do what you're going to do. The hotel's almost like cover. Sounds like you guys are texting and there will be plans no matter what. So.
Yeah,
Is another
I think
grand.
the hotel is like the classy thing to do, right? Keep your image, I guess, up there, even though everyone probably knows
Pretend.
you're not going to
If
use
mom and
it.
dad were
I
in town,
know,
definitely
I
had to get the
know.
hotel.
But if you could swing it, I do think it is a nice gesture. I will say I'm with Kyle. Like if it's a nice guy, and again, you guys are buddies, so like this could be awesome for him. He's like, hey man, I could potentially we can get a brother-in-law situation going here, and then we could hang out for the rest of our lives. Maybe that's going through his mind. That'd be cool.
At 21.
But and it reminds me of like the Stefan. Well, I don't know. Well, I will say a lot of people meet like their spouse later in college.
Other
Like
things, smoke shows, especially sisters, usually they end up dating higher. He might have already been through some whole rigmarole with like a dude that's older than him hanging around the house or whatever. Mom's like, could you please talk to her? Like it could have been a whole thing if she really is a D1 smoke show and this is like, he might have been through the gamut already a couple times and he's like, dude, I'll take this. If we could stop this ride right now, like maybe that's, I don't know, probably not. They're at different schools, but either way.
Yeah, and honestly, like it reminds me of like the Stefan Diggs thing, where like the famous video,
Yes.
if they're all asking him like, who would you least want all your teammates, and it's like
No one
every
thought
teammate
about it
says
for
Stefan
more than a
Diggs,
second. Yes.
which is hysterical because what is he at? I think he's tied up right now with a lot of kids situation. One of them's Cardi B. This seems like the opposite of that. Like I think you got the approval from your boy, which is like the most important thing. I mean, still be respectful. That's why I think you should still, maybe if you could swing it, do the hotel room thing, even though everybody kind of knows it's not real. But I kind of feel like you're in a great spot here. I would do all the classy routes, be kind and whatever, but I think you got an in here. You're good.
Growing up, having two younger sisters, like I just thought immediately, like you had to punch everyone in the face that ever
Yeah, I
liked your
know.
sister.
I had that
I
phase
don't-
too.
I
I
embarrassed her
I
so
don't-
many times.
My current
Yeah.
brother-in-law I didn't talk to for like years just because I thought my dad's like too nice, so I was like, I got to be the hardo guy, and
You're
he's
bad
like
cop.
been around for 15 years. Yeah.
You lost 3 good years with your because of your
Yeah.
stupid pride.
Yeah, and I don't really understand why. I just
Yeah.
think, again, you can realize like how I was thinking about this the other day, like if you're at an office and how it's weird if someone's old and impressionable, right? If you're young and impressionable, like that makes sense. But like the older guys, seen so many people that are so full of shit, and you're just like, how this guy just doesn't even want, like that guy's closing out on things that actually might be interesting and may make sense, but he's so determined to not be impressionable after all the bullshit things that he's heard through his entire life. So for whatever reason, for me as being a little kid, like being impressionable, I thought like, oh, I have to be an older brother. And like, if a guy likes my sister, not that I was a fucking skin and bones. So it wasn't like anybody was going to be scared of me, but I just thought like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. And then I remember, I think later on in high school, a friend of mine, his sister was dating this guy that was a bit of a stretch. It was like, what is she doing? She's dating that guy? Like he's older, I don't know. I think he had his license really early, but then didn't get through high school. Kind of one of those guys. And I was like, are you pissed? I'm like, are you and your brothers mad? And they were like, no. They're like, she wants to date somebody that we don't like she can date somebody. If I date someone that has a brother, my brother dates a girl that also had, like, if we just went through life where every brother was sitting there screaming at anybody that was ever dating her sister, like it doesn't make a lot of sense. So why would you sit there and it was like, oh wow, this is this epiphany. Like it's on, folks. It's on. Where are the sisters? The other thing I've
That's a great
learned
monologue.
Yeah, jeez.
is that sisters are going to do whatever they want. She doesn't care about Ben at all. So, you can do the hotel thing and pretend like this whole thing's not going to happen. I'd also offer up like at 21, 22, like I don't know what your financial situation is, but for me to spend money on a hotel room that likely isn't going to be used to drop $200, I'm like, this is awful.
Can have a
Like,
nicer dinner. Come on.
Yeah, we already know what's going to happen here. So I don't know. You might be right, Kyle. Some brothers are wired this way very early on. Like, yeah, it's cool. Like, you want to hang out with my sister? You just want to hook up? Like, I don't care. Like, I don't care.
Don't ever talk to me about it. Right?
Yeah.
How about that?
Full Metal Jacket. Remember
You do
that?
that?
I don't know
scene?
that I'd ever be that cool. It'd be like, yeah, do whatever you want.
I
Like,
wouldn't either.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either. But those people do exist. But I know the sisters don't ever care about whatever the rules are. The sisters are going to do whatever they want. And I think you're kidding yourself if you've already been texting, you've already invited her to this thing. Like you already know what you're going to do. So what kind of tax are you willing to pay on this kind of transaction? Because you know what's not going to happen? The booze and the pheromones and the hotel room booked ahead of time. You're not going to be saying bon nuit, my lady. Text me when you get home.
Yeah.
You're not going to be doing that.
No
You're
way, dude.
dude,
Could you use the
22,
hotel room though? Maybe
42.
together, you both go back to the hotel room. Is that a possibility? I don't
Yeah,
know
that's
what
what
your
it
situation's
comes
like.
back to
Yeah.
how the funds are. If the funds are low and we're scraping together money for
So you're
25
talking
cent
about,
wings, then maybe you're
like-
not gonna doing that.
I thought he might mean like the hotel for you guys interpret it as that way he's not bringing her back to the house that her brother also lives in. I thought it meant like a safety valve of like,
That's
hey,
what I
we'll
thought.
go to the dance and this is nice, but you can go your separate way. And I'm telling you, there's no 22-year-old. I don't even, if I met that guy
What are you, crazy?
and he said that in his interview, I
Get him
wouldn't
tested
hire him.
for some sort of psychological. Do you think
But
it's
can you-
better or worse?
Can you tell me about a time in your life where you felt like you made a great decision and they'd run through this? And I'd be like, we're done here.
Yeah, we'll call you. Do you think it's? I think it's better, but do you think it's better or worse that she's blowing into town and then blowing out of town? If this was like a weekly thing and he like is missing hangouts to go hang out with this guy's sister, that's way worse. It's probably better that she's just blowing into town for a weekend and maybe everyone can forget about it if the brother needs to think about something else.
Well, maybe he does want to date, but like you're right.
It sounds like he's all right. Yeah, it
It
sounds
does sound like he's all right.
So I can't. I think as long as you're respectful, I think the respectful thing to do is to give her that out. And then again,
If they're
maybe
roommates, thin walls, those campus
yeah,
off-campus houses
use the
usually
hotel
aren't-
room. Yeah.
usually aren't rock solid. So maybe use the hotel room. Let's do a different one. I'm now becoming uncomfortable.
Hello, friends. Maybe this is Jim Nance.
I was gonna say, well,
Congrats on the new show. Hope all y'all are doing well. This could be Jim Nance. I'm 27 years old. It's not Jim Nance. 5'11", 181. Don't bench, so can't name stats, but I dropped from 240. Wow, this guy dropped
Damn.
60 pounds to where I am now. I've also gotten off a serious cocaine addiction. Oh,
good for you.
yikes. All right, but good for you. We'll struggle with alcohol, though. This one's pretty serious. I didn't know that I proofread this one, so let's see how this goes. I just, again, some of the more serious ones, I think it's pretty clear the three of us are not necessarily.
I could wrap my head around this one. Some of these I can't
Yeah.
wrap my head around. So
All right.
yeah, why don't you keep going?
All right, we'll give this one a shot here. Currently working as a forklift operator in a warehouse. All right, I get paid okay. Pro tip to the young men out there: if you're good at your job and you want to raise, threatening to quit usually does the job. I've made more of my life as a bartender and set deck designer, but I've had to take this job because I moved to Canada to help my music career. My French is not good enough to be a bartender here yet. I'm an above amateur musician, great at live performance, have sold out 700 people venues twice as a headliner in my hometown in BC, but I lack the Spotify numbers, is still figuring out how to work the studio. Well, that part sounds really
Damn,
good.
we just missed you. Fuck.
Uh,
Sorry.
My question to you is, do you think it's a smarter move to continue the path I'm on right now, work 5 days a week, play music too, make content, Lord help me, and constantly work on the dream while not saving lots of money because all of my free time goes to the dream? Or should I go back home, study a trade, and get more into a serious career, still work on the dream with all my heart and passion, but not stress so much financially, hopefully? I think an important thing to say here too is I've made serious money as a headlining musician before, so it is a possible career for me. When I was doing music full time back home, I did the math and basically made about $30 an hour. I had a 9 to 5, nothing to write home about, but I didn't want to blow my brains out. Should I go full dream while semi crippling myself financially till 30, or should I go half dream finances and move back home? Go Knicks. Said
I
if
think
it's too
full-
long. No, good email. I mean, it wasn't too long. He was worried about it being a little too long there. I mean, look,
I
this
thought
is pretty,
I thought it wasn't that serious either. Like,
No.
I thought this was gonna be like, I don't know,
it ended up being pretty straightforward, but
Yeah.
there was the added, hey,
good email.
not afraid. There was a time. Not
Yeah,
afraid.
full dream I think involves a lot of cocaine offers. I don't know how strong you are in the in the saying no business. If it was sort of like got to get I don't know how you got off everything that you were on, but if you're struggling with alcohol and you used to be a cokehead, I'm just
Going on
just
tour is
wondering.
probably not it.
I'm just wondering how tough those guardrails are that you put up recently. How recent you put him up? He's 27. I mean, I don't know. I'd say it was probably at least 24 before he tried to make a change, right?
I think he understands all those things, though.
Yeah, I
I
think
would
so, too.
imagine, right?
I think so too.
that goes without saying. Look, I'm a big follow your dreams guy, but you kind of have to like take stock of what bothers you more. Like for the longest time, not having money sucked, but I was like, I don't care. I just don't care. I don't care about any of these things. I only care about this thing. And I'm not even saying like that's the blueprint or that's what everybody else should do because I don't even know that it was necessarily that happy. I wasn't that happy. I don't know that it was that healthy. It was fairly obsessive, but whatever. Um, but there's a certain age where not having money, it starts to go like, hey, this is starting to suck. Now, do you want a
Starving
family?
artist.
Right. Do you want a what? Like you basically have to ask yourself, do I care so much more about feeling like I give the dream the full chance where I know if it doesn't work, at least I'll feel like I gave it that shot. Because I think there's a lot of people that probably walk around going, I never really gave it like the full commitment. And that's for a million different reasons and the things around you that change in life that impact what kind of decisions you're going to make. But is it going to bum you out more if you feel like you don't give it everything? Or is it going to bum you out more as you start to get closer to 30 without seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and feeling like, hey, I'm juggling all these jobs and I'm broke all the time and my support system around me isn't necessarily that great? Like that, I can't answer for you. But that would be the thing that like some people are just okay. Like, hey, I don't care that my place sucks. I don't care that I'm not making any money. Like at least there's a point of all of this. And if you can be okay with that, then none of those material things will matter. But as you age, your priorities are going to start to change. And you're starting looking around going, hey, I want to be able to do some nice things for myself in the next 5 years. And it's kind of sucks that I've never been able to do it the last 10.
Yeah, you know what? My brother just graduated college recently, my youngest brother.
Congratulations.
Yeah, awesome. And
Tell
he's
him-
been a
tell
little
him, what's up?
I will. I'm gonna watch the Pats game with him tonight, actually. So he's back home and he's been like a little reluctant to like take a job with that, he thinks is like, pretty low paying for a guy fresh out. And I'm like, man, like it's not giving up. Like you could still like try to take over the world at night. You could still if you have
It's
this
only 8
grand
hours.
master plan. Yeah, it's fucking 9 to 5. I mean, you don't if you don't even sleep like this kid. I'm like, man, you've got a whole another 12 hours if you really want. Like, I don't know.
What's his sleep
And then you
schedule
got
like right now?
weekends. It's really terrible. It's really terrible.
Give us a sample.
I mean, it's sometimes he's up late. Sometimes it's all day sleep. I don't know. He's got nowhere to be. So I guess I can't really fault him.
Has he started his day after 2:00?
I don't
ever?
know. The light's always off in the room, even though sometimes he's
Yeah.
there. I'm not really sure what his deal is. But I got him out last Sunday, and then we're gonna go watch the Pats tonight.
Just a quick interjection on that. Can you imagine now that I realize, can you imagine how horrifying it is to an adult when like the guy comes back from college and he's sleeping until 2 or 3?
Dude.
You're like, hey, what happened to this human that we raised? And you're like starting your day going,
Depending on the level of
Right.
help they gave in college too. Like,
yeah,
what the
you
fuck
figure
did I
out like,
buy?
what are you doing?
This is
Like,
what I
hey,
paid for.
What did I buy?
I just need a bit of a downtime sort of mental reset. So, you guys just gotta like just put the laundry over there. I'll get in when I get in. I'll use the back entrance. But like, this is who I'm going to be for a couple months. All right. So, Cerruti, I feel like you've been left out on this one.
No, my thing with yours, Ryan, was like you kind of can't half-ass these things, right? Especially like is his goal like his goal is to like pop on Spotify and then like become that's gonna be his whole thing. I- Can you
do wonder what the forklift buddies would be like if he's like pumping
I
out
fucking love the
content.
forklift thing, to be honest with you.
I wonder how those dudes down at the warehouse would respond if they're like, dude, have you followed Scott on Instagram? Do you see all this shit he's
I
doing?
know it's such a
It would
bummer.
probably be tough to go balls to the wall while working with warehouse dudes. I don't
I know what kind of music is it? I wonder. Like, what would be the like if it's he's doing like some sort of like
Yeah.
weird Euro pop thing? It's probably like, what's this guy doing? But if maybe he's got a metal situation, that'd be cool. Maybe it's a little different. I don't know.
Or an acoustic, just
Yeah.
tell
Do
love
we need a
stories.
sample? Like, do we need
Yeah,
to
I'd
see
love
the
to hear it.
singles
Yeah.
and go, hey,
Actually, that's
guy,
a good idea. We should
This
be
would
like,
have been your chance.
do you actually have a shot, or should you just retire to the forklift now? But
British Columbia Idol, just 3 Americans.
thumbs
How
up,
the
thumbs down.
Turns have tabled. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just, I'm so sick of English people judging us. Although this is British Columbia, and he's in another part of it. Why don't you send it,
Come on, send us a
maybe
clip. Send us a link.
we can get, how about we could do this? How about we could do this? Send us the link to your music. We'll share it. Fuck it. Look at
We'll
this.
play it on the pod and react to it.
Well, we can't do that because then he could sue us.
Well,
even
no,
if
we
he
get
says,
his
"Don't worry
permission to
about
do it. We're not.
Yeah, but then there's like paperwork and stuff. Like when my brother was trying to do some of the music stuff at ESPN, this one manager, who again is one of the most annoying human beings of all time, he just couldn't help like, hey, you didn't do your paperwork yet for your brother. I was like, hey, it's my brother. He's not going to sue Disney. Like he's not going to sue Disney. It's going to be all right. And it was like, no, we can't keep running it and whatever. I was like, do you have nothing to fucking do?
Yeah, it seems.
You have nothing to do this week, do you? So anyway, all right, rant over. Why don't you send us a link to some of the music, and then we'll post it maybe on Threads. Maybe we'll post it on Threads because Twitter's pretty chill about a lot of different things. Or maybe we'll listen to it.
Follow the
come
show
back.
page. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. So just email back, respond to this email here. Let us listen to it. I mean, what I don't want to do is if we don't like it, be like, hey, man, like, see if you can be head of forklifts. I don't think I'd never say that to
That's
anybody.
basically what Steve said. It's like just retire to the forklift.
I would never say that to anybody. I mean, look,
Yeah.
it would have to be, it'd have to be like that kid that sort of talks that somehow ended up on Tiny Desk. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that one's a tough watch,
Yeah.
but I watch it every time. It just pops
I
up.
watch it every time. I hate it so much. I'm fascinated by his confidence to actually do live concerts. I'm like,
those
this
four
guy
guys
was a
with him
thing.
were like gassing him up too. So
COVID was a tough time. People were making some decisions back then. Like, what the fuck? Anyway. All right. That'll do it for the show. I think we made the point. Rudy, you seem bummed out. Do you feel
No,
left out?
I don't know who this Tiny Desk guy is. So I'm googling this right now.
I'll send it to you. It'll be funny. It'll be real funny.
It's the worst piece of art in 20 years.
It's so bad.
Looking forward to it.
But again, that guy looks in the mirror and sees something. So who are we to tell him he doesn't see anything? That part I admire. Once he's doing the thing, not as excited. All right, that'll do it for the show. Thanks to Kyle. Thanks to Cerruti. Please subscribe. Get the word out. The Ryen Russillo Show on Apple and on Spotify, part of the Barstool Network.